My name is John. I'm from Brooklyn. My question, you've touched on it a little bit already. What are the most important issues in the country right now that the president will not address tonight, and why?
He will not address, I would suspect, what I think of as preparedness. The need to look at the future in a way that is optimistic and yet is aware that trouble may be coming and we want to stay safe. Preparedness to me includes various civil defense functions that I really would like the president to speak to. The president does not. I think they are convinced that to talk about civil defense in any really thoughtful, lengthy way is to sound downbeat. I think that's silly, but I think that's one issue he will not discuss. Ted?
In terms of what's on the minds of everyone in his audience in the hall tonight, will be what is popularly called the culture of corruption in Washington, and how far this scandal will spread and how many congressmen will be reached or ruined by it. I don't think he can safely talk about that to that audience, and his own party does not have a unified view on that. His party doesn't. They say he's going to talk about immigration reform tonight, but his party is very divided on that issue as well, and it's a tough issue. And it's unusual for a president to press on an issue where his own party is divided, because another little game that I guess we didn't really talk about yet in the State of the Union is it's mostly a compilation, at least in these days. It was more than that when Peggy was writing them. But for the last, since Peggy's time, it's mostly a compilation of applause lines. Just one-line statements that end on a very high note about the flag and our brave men and women abroad, so that everybody applauds on both sides of the aisle. And then you get to those applause lines in which you talk about how property rights need to be defended and taxes need to be cut, and all the Republicans stand up and applaud and the Democrats stay seated. And on a few occasions, he might mention something, either on immigration reform. He's certainly not going to mention prescription drug program, which was another one of his proposals last year. Yeah, Brownie must have been put in charge of that, too. Anyway, so there will be some, but this game of standing and sitting on the different sides of the aisle becomes a little complicated if he raises issues such as corruption or immigration reform that his own party is divided on. So we'll see.
I would add that if I were a Democrat, I wouldn't think corruption was an issue that worked in my favor.
This year it does.
I don't think so. I must tell you, the history of corruption in the past 50 years in the United States of America has not, in general, been a Republican Party problem. It has been, in my view, a Democratic Party problem. You may dislike Mr. Bush for having shaken the hand of Jack Abramoff 3, 4, 5, or 6 times, but you know Bush isn't going to pardon him because he was a contributor on his way out of the Oval Office, as Mr. Clinton did. I mean, there is corruption and there is corruption, and I just don't think you can compare Bush and Clinton in that area. However, let me say...
You're probably right about that, and I'll discuss it with Bernie Carrick when I see him.
On another note, what must the president say in order to regain this momentum?
Can I mention something that Ted and I will agree on, and I bet you'll all agree on about rhetoric, by the way. I think Ted was suggesting that it has degenerated somewhat in the past few decades, presidential rhetoric. I think it has. Two dreadful things have happened. One is that, I mean, when Ted spoke of the applause lines, I just can't stand the applause line after applause line stuff that is in the nature of modern presidential rhetoric. It's insubstantial. It gives nobody in the audience time to think along with you. It is a cheap and ultimately not only manipulative, but manipulative seeming way to speak to people. Two dreadful things happen in rhetoric in the past 25 years, I would say, or at least that I know of in the past 25 years. One is that I know that in the Reagan era, and I suspect before then, but at least I know that in the Reagan era, after the president gave a big speech, a pollster would take that speech and show the videotape of it to people, and they would focus group it and talk about what lines they liked. Then the pollster would come back to us and tell us. I thought that was appalling. It's just not the way to go about thinking aloud and leading aloud in a democracy. In the Clinton era, it got even worse. They started doing that with presidential speeches before he gave the speech. The lines had been tested in advance, so it got even worse. I don't know if it's gotten worse than that, but I don't know if it could get worse than that.